What if I told you that Carl Jung discovered the most powerful psychological secret that could transform your deepest desires from sources of weakness into engines of unstoppable personal power? Right now, as you're watching this, you're probably being controlled by desires you don't even understand. Desires that make you chase people who don't want you, crave validation from those who dismiss you, and seek love from those who can never truly see you. But Jung uncovered something revolutionary about human desire that changes everything. He discovered that desire isn't your enemy. It's your greatest untapped source of psychological power, waiting to be transformed through a specific process he called the alchemy of the soul. Most people live their entire lives as slaves to their desires, never realizing that these same desires contain the raw material for becoming the most magnetic, powerful, and authentically attractive version of themselves. Jung's patients who learned this secret didn't just transform their love lives, they transformed their entire existence. If you're ready to stop being controlled by your desires and start using them as fuel for becoming irresistibly powerful, hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. Because what I'm about to share with you is Jung's most closely guarded psychological secret, a method so powerful that it can completely revolutionize how others see you and respond to you. Today, we're diving deep into Jung's revolutionary understanding of desire transformation, how to take the very feelings that make you feel weak, desperate, and needy, and alchemically transform them into magnetic personal power that draws others to you like a force of nature. This isn't about suppressing your desires or pretending they don't exist. This is about something far more powerful. It's about psychological alchemy, the ancient art of transforming base metals into gold, applied to the landscape of human desire and attraction. Jung understood that desire is simply energy, and energy can always be transformed, redirected, and transmuted into something more powerful. The question isn't whether you have desires. The question is whether you're going to let them control you, or whether you're going to learn to harness them as the driving force of your personal transformation. And here's what most people don't realize. Every person you've ever found magnetically attractive has mastered this exact process, whether they know it or not. Stay with me, because I'm about to reveal the psychological mechanism that creates true magnetic attraction. Jung spent decades studying the relationship between desire and personal power, and what he discovered will completely change how you think about attraction, relationships, and your own psychological development. He found that most people experience desire as a form of psychological imprisonment. They want something or someone so badly that they become energetically depleted, emotionally desperate, and behaviorally unattractive. But Jung identified a specific type of person who seemed immune to this pattern. Individuals who could feel intense desire without being controlled by it, who could want something deeply while maintaining complete psychological freedom. These people possessed what Jung called integrated desire. They had learned to transform their wanting into a source of personal power rather than personal weakness. The secret lies in understanding what Jung called the paradox of desire. Most people think that getting what they want will make them powerful, but Jung discovered the opposite is true. Power comes not from getting what you want, but from transforming your relationship to wanting itself. When you're controlled by desire, you operate from what Jung called psychological scarcity. Your energy is focused outward, seeking completion from external sources. This creates what he termed energetic hemorrhaging. You literally leak your personal power through desperate wanting. But when you learn to transform desire through Jung's method, something miraculous happens. Your wanting becomes an internal energy source rather than an external drain. Instead of depleting you, your desires begin to fuel your personal magnetism and psychological strength. Jung observed that people who had mastered this transformation possessed an almost supernatural attractiveness. They seemed to draw others to them effortlessly, not because they were trying to get something, but because they had become something. They had become individuals who were energetically complete and psychologically powerful. The transformation process Jung discovered involves what he called conscious suffering, learning to fully experience your desires without immediately acting on them or trying to fulfill them. This creates what he termed psychological tension, and it's this tension that becomes the raw material for personal power. Most people try to resolve their desires as quickly as possible, either by getting what they want or by suppressing what they want. But Jung found a third path, holding the tension of desire consciously, allowing it to transform you from within rather than driving you toward external fulfillment. Jung developed a specific four-step process for this transformation that he used with his most successful patients. This method has been kept secret for decades, but I'm about to reveal exactly how it works. Don't miss this. It's the key to everything. Before you can transform your desires into power, Jung insisted that you must first understand what he called the shadow of desire, the unconscious patterns that turn your natural wanting into psychological weakness and behavioral desperation. Jung discovered that most people have a completely backward relationship with their desires. They try to hide their wanting, suppress their longing, and pretend they don't need what they actually crave. This creates what he called shadow desires, unconscious patterns of wanting that control your behavior without your awareness. When you have shadow desires, you become what Jung termed unconsciously needy. You're constantly seeking validation, attention, and fulfillment, but you're doing it in indirect, manipulative ways that actually repel the very things you're trying to attract. The shadow of desire manifests in relationships as what Jung called psychological vampirism. You unconsciously try to get your emotional needs met by draining energy from others. You might do this through excessive texting, seeking constant reassurance, or creating drama to get attention. Jung observed that shadow desires create what he called energetic desperation. Others can sense that you're trying to get something from them, and this immediately makes you less attractive and less powerful in their eyes. People are naturally drawn to those who seem complete and naturally repelled by those who seem to need something from them. The key to transforming shadow desires is what Jung called conscious acknowledgement, honestly facing what you want without shame, judgment, or immediate action. This requires tremendous psychological courage because it means admitting to yourself the depth of your wanting without trying to fix it or fulfill it. Jung worked with patients who were desperately seeking love but couldn't find it, and he discovered that their very desperation was creating an energetic barrier to love. The more they wanted love, the more they repelled it. But when they learned to consciously acknowledge their desire for love without immediately seeking it, something magical happened. They began to develop what Jung called psychological magnetism, an internal completeness that actually drew love to them. Their desire for love, instead of making them needy, began to make them more attractive and more powerful. This is the fundamental principle of Jung's desire transformation method. What you resist controls you. What you unconsciously seek repels you, but what you consciously acknowledge and alchemically transform becomes your greatest source of personal power. Jung identified 5 specific shadow patterns that keep people trapped in weak, desperate behavior. I'm about to reveal these patterns and show you exactly how to transform each one into magnetic power. This could change everything about how others respond to you. Jung's method for transforming desire into power is based on the ancient principle of alchemy, the art of transmuting base materials into precious metals. But instead of transforming lead into gold, Jung taught his patients to transform psychological, lead, desperate wanting, needy behavior, and emotional weakness into psychological gold, magnetic presence, personal power, and irresistible attractiveness. The alchemical process Jung developed has 4 distinct stages, which he adapted from the classical alchemical tradition: nigredo, the blackening; albedo, the whitening; citrinitas, the yellowing; and rubedo, the reddening. Each stage represents a specific transformation in your relationship to desire and power. Nigredo, the first stage, involves what Jung called conscious descent, deliberately facing the full intensity of your desires without trying to escape, to fulfill, or suppress them. This is the most difficult phase because it requires you to sit with the psychological discomfort of wanting without immediately seeking relief. Most people avoid nigredo at all costs. They distract themselves, seek immediate gratification, or try to numb their desires. But Jung discovered that this conscious suffering is absolutely essential for transformation. It's in the darkness of unfulfilled wanting that the seeds of personal power begin to germinate. During nigredo, you learn to differentiate between what Jung called authentic desire and neurotic craving. Authentic desire comes from your deepest self and connects you to your true purpose and power. Neurotic craving comes from psychological wounds and keeps you trapped in patterns of weakness and dependency. Albedo, the second stage, involves what Jung termed psychological purification, learning to separate authentic desires from neurotic cravings through conscious observation and analysis. You begin to see which of your desires come from strength and which come from weakness. Jung taught his patients specific techniques for this purification process, including what he called active imagination, consciously dialoguing with your desires to understand their deeper meaning and purpose. Through this process, you begin to understand that your deepest desires aren't obstacles to power, they're pathways to it. Citrinitas, the third stage, represents the dawning of psychological wisdom. You begin to understand how to use your transformed desires as sources of creative energy and personal magnetism. Your wanting becomes fuel for becoming rather than seeking. The fourth stage, rubedo, is where the real magic happens. This is where your transformed desires become a source of almost supernatural personal magnetism. Jung's patients who reached this stage reported that others began treating them completely differently. Keep watching to learn exactly how this transformation works. Rubedo, the final stage of Jung's alchemical process, represents the complete transformation of desire into power. At this stage, your wanting becomes what Jung called conscious desire, a focused, intentional energy that draws what you want to you rather than pushing you toward desperate seeking. Jung discovered that people who had completed this transformation possessed what he termed magnetic presence. Others were naturally drawn to them because they embodied a powerful combination of intensity and freedom, passion and non-attachment. The secret of conscious wanting is learning what Jung called energetic sovereignty, the ability to want something intensely while remaining completely free from the outcome. This creates what he described as psychological paradox. You become most attractive to others when you need nothing from them. Jung observed that conscious desire operates like a psychological magnet. It draws experiences, people, and opportunities to you through what he called synchronistic attraction. When your desires are aligned with your authentic self and held with conscious intention, the universe seems to conspire to fulfill them. But this isn't magical thinking. It's psychological science. When you operate from conscious desire rather than unconscious neediness, you make completely different choices, take completely different actions, and project a completely different energy. Others respond to this transformed energy by treating you as more valuable, more interesting, and more attractive. The key to developing conscious wanting is what Jung called the practice of psychological tension, learning to hold the energy of desire without immediately discharging it through action. This builds what he termed psychic muscle, the ability to contain and direct powerful energies. Jung taught his patients specific exercises for developing this capacity, including what he called desire meditation, consciously experiencing the full intensity of your wanting while simultaneously maintaining complete inner freedom from the outcome. Through this practice, you begin to understand that desire isn't something that happens to you. It's something you can consciously direct and utilize. Your wanting becomes a tool for psychological development rather than a source of psychological suffering. Most importantly, conscious wanting transforms your entire energetic signature. Instead of projecting neediness, desperation, or emotional hunger, you begin to project what Jung called self-contained intensity. You're clearly passionate and alive, but you're not trying to get anything from anyone. Jung developed a specific daily practice that allows you to transform any desire into conscious power within just 21 days. This practice has been used by thousands of people to completely transform their attractiveness and personal magnetism. I'm about to reveal this exact method. Don't miss it. Jung's 21-day desire transformation protocol is based on his understanding of how long it takes for new neural pathways to form and old patterns to dissolve. This isn't just theory. Jung used this exact method with his patients and documented remarkable transformations in their relationships, careers, and personal magnetism. The protocol has 3 phases, each lasting 7 days, designed to move you through the complete alchemical transformation from unconscious wanting to conscious power. Days 1-7 focus on what Jung called conscious recognition, becoming aware of your desire patterns without trying to change them. Each morning, you spend 10 minutes writing down every desire, want, and craving you're experiencing, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant. The key during this phase is what Jung termed non-judgmental observation. You're simply becoming conscious of your wanting without trying to fix, fulfill, or suppress it. Most people are shocked by how much unconscious wanting they discover during this phase. Jung emphasized that this recognition phase is crucial because you cannot transform what you're not conscious of. Many people skip this step and try to jump directly to transformation, but Jung found that this always leads to failure and often makes the underlying patterns worse. Days 8-14 involve what Jung called conscious separation, learning to differentiate between desires that come from your authentic self and cravings that come from psychological wounds or social conditioning. This phase requires what Jung termed psychological archaeology, digging into the origins of your wanting. For each desire you identified in the first week, you ask Jung's 3 essential questions. Does this desire make me more myself or less myself? Does this desire connect me to my power or disconnect me from it? And does this desire serve my growth or my addiction to comfort? Through this process, you begin to see that some of your desires are actually pathways to greater authenticity and power, while others are simply habits that keep you trapped in weakness and dependency. Days 15-21 represent what Jung called conscious transformation, actively working with your authentic desires to transform them into sources of personal magnetism and power. This involves specific visualization and energy practices that Jung developed through his work with alchemy and depth psychology. The most powerful technique in this phase is what Jung called desire reversal. Instead of using your energy to seek what you want from the external world, you use that same energy to become the type of person who naturally attracts what you desire. Jung documented that people who completed this 21-day protocol experienced profound changes, not just in how they felt, but in how others responded to them. The results were so dramatic that Jung called it personality alchemy. Let me show you exactly what happens during each phase of this transformation. What Jung understood intuitively about desire transformation, modern neuroscience has now proven scientifically. Recent research in neuroplasticity and behavioral psychology confirms that Jung's alchemical method actually rewires your brain in ways that make you more attractive, more confident, and more magnetically powerful. When you practice conscious wanting as Jung taught, you're literally building new neural pathways associated with what researchers call secure attachment and emotional self-regulation. Instead of your brain being wired for seeking validation and approval from others, it becomes wired for internal validation and self-generated confidence. Studies using brain imaging technology show that people who practice Jung's desire transformation method develop increased activity in the prefrontal cortex, the area associated with executive function, emotional regulation, and what psychologists call emotional intelligence. Even more fascinating, research shows that this brain rewiring creates measurable changes in your biochemistry. People who transform their desires using Jung's method show increased levels of dopamine and serotonin, the neurotransmitters associated with confidence, happiness, and social dominance. Jung anticipated these findings when he wrote about what he called the physiology of transformation, his observation that psychological changes always manifest as physical changes in posture, voice, energy, and overall presence. The reason Jung's method works so powerfully is that it addresses desire at the neurological level rather than just the behavioral level. Instead of trying to change what you do, you're changing how your brain processes wanting itself. Modern research on approach versus avoidance motivation confirms Jung's insight that transformed desire creates what he called magnetic energy. Or when your wanting comes from authentic self-expression, rather than neediness or lack, others unconsciously perceive you as more attractive and valuable. This explains why people who complete Jung's transformation process often report that others begin treating them differently, pursuing them instead of being pursued, seeking their attention instead of avoiding it, and generally responding to them as if they've become more valuable and interesting. The neurological changes created by Jung's method also explain why the transformation tends to be permanent rather than temporary. You're not just changing your behavior, you're literally rewiring your brain's relationship to desire and power. Jung understood that lasting transformation must occur at the deepest levels of the psyche, and modern neuroscience confirms that his method creates exactly the type of neurological changes that lead to permanent shifts in personality and attractiveness. Jung documented dozens of cases where his desire transformation method created remarkable changes in his patients' lives, relationships, and overall magnetism. These case studies reveal exactly how the transformation from weak wanting to conscious power manifests in real-world situations. One of Jung's most famous cases involved a woman who had been desperately seeking love for years, engaging in what he called romantic addiction, constantly chasing men who were unavailable or uninterested. Through the 21-day protocol, she transformed her desperate seeking into what Jung termed self-contained radiance. Within months of completing the transformation, she found herself being pursued by multiple high-quality men, including several who had previously shown no interest in her. Jung noted that she hadn't changed her appearance or behavior dramatically. She had simply transformed her energetic signature from neediness to power. Another case involved a man who had been struggling with what Jung called professional desperation, constantly seeking approval and validation from colleagues and superiors. Through the desire transformation process, he learned to channel his wanting for professional success into what Jung termed authentic ambition. The results were remarkable. Within 6 months, he received 2 promotions and was being recruited by competing companies. Jung observed that his transformation from seeking approval to embodying competence had made him far more valuable in others' eyes. Jung also worked with individuals struggling with what he called social anxiety rooted in desire, people who wanted social connection so badly that their neediness made them socially awkward and unattractive. Through conscious desire transformation, they learned to want connection from a place of abundance rather than scarcity. These individuals found that social interactions became effortless and enjoyable. Instead of trying to get something from others, they were able to offer their authentic presence, which naturally drew people to them. One of the most powerful aspects of Jung's case studies is his documentation of what he called the ripple effect. When one person transforms their relationship to desire, it often catalyzes transformation in everyone around them. Jung observed that transformed individuals often became what he called psychological magnets. They naturally attracted others who were also committed to growth and authenticity, while naturally repelling those who operated from neediness and manipulation. The key insight from Jung's case studies is that desire transformation isn't just about getting what you want. It's about becoming someone who naturally attracts what aligns with their highest potential. Beyond the 21-day protocol, Jung developed advanced techniques for maintaining and deepening your transformation from desperate wanting to conscious power. These practices are designed to be integrated into daily life to ensure that your new relationship to desire becomes permanent and continues to evolve. Jung's most powerful advanced technique is what he called desire alchemy meditation, a daily practice where you consciously work with the energy of wanting to fuel personal growth and magnetism rather than seeking external fulfillment. The practice involves sitting quietly and bringing to mind something you deeply desire. Instead of fantasizing about having it or planning how to get it, you focus on the pure energy of the wanting itself. Jung called this extracting the essence, separating the energy from the object. You then consciously direct this energy into what Jung termed becoming rather than seeking, using the power of your desire to fuel your own development, creativity, and authenticity, rather than trying to acquire something external. Another advanced technique Jung developed is desire dialogue, a form of active imagination where you have conscious conversations with your desires to understand their deeper purpose and wisdom. Through this practice, you discover that authentic desires are often disguised spiritual callings. Jung also taught what he called magnetic visualization, imagining yourself as someone who naturally possesses the qualities that would attract what you desire, rather than imagining yourself having what you want. This subtle shift creates profound changes in your energy and behavior. For maintaining transformation in relationships, Jung developed conscious wanting practices, ways to desire your partner deeply while remaining completely free from neediness or attachment. This paradoxical approach often deepens intimacy and attraction dramatically. Jung emphasized the importance of what he called desire hygiene, regularly examining your wants to ensure they're coming from authentic self-expression rather than unconscious wounds or social conditioning. He also developed energy conservation practices, techniques for avoiding what he called desire leakage, the unconscious ways people drain their personal power through scattered wanting and unfocused energy. The most advanced practitioners of Jung's method learn what he called desire manifestation, the ability to fulfill authentic desires through internal transformation rather than external manipulation or seeking. The ultimate goal of Jung's desire transformation method is what he called psychological sovereignty, the ability to want deeply while remaining completely free, to desire intensely while maintaining perfect inner peace, and to attract powerfully while needing nothing from anyone. Jung observed that individuals who achieve this level of mastery possess what he termed integrated magnetism. They're simultaneously passionate and peaceful, intense and relaxed, focused and flexible. This paradoxical quality makes them irresistibly attractive to others. The key to achieving psychological sovereignty is understanding what Jung called the paradox of power. True power comes not from getting what you want, but from transforming your relationship to wanting itself. When you no longer need anything from the external world to feel complete, you become magnetic to everything the external world has to offer. Jung taught that mastery of desire transformation creates what he called synchronistic living. Your life begins to flow in harmony with your deepest purposes, and opportunities, relationships, and experiences seem to appear effortlessly. This isn't about becoming passive or indifferent. It's about becoming what Jung termed actively receptive, taking inspired action from a place of inner fullness rather than outer emptiness.